I picked up this Shelterlogic Shed-in-a-Box, and most of the build was pretty straightforward with fairly easy instructions to follow. Just read the step, do the step, and get the banana. However, the instructions call for 2 people and a ladder, and I am unfortunately not 2 people. I'm only 1 person on my best days, and I was too lazy to go get a ladder. So I'm going to show you how I built this shed in a box by myself without a ladder, and rest assured, it was fairly easy to do. It's at this point in the build, fairly early on, when things started to become difficult with a single person. You need to lift these assemblies and marry them together. It's about impossible with 1 person because they like to twist in on themselves, and it's really difficult to do. But after I figured out what to do, it was pretty smooth sailing after that. So these instructions are mostly pretty straightforward, but what it's going to do is it's going to tell you to put these legs in first on each section, and then on the next section put the bottom legs in there as well. Don't do that. I'm going to show you an easier way to do this. Basically, I'm assembling the top portion of the entire canopy, and then I'm going to put the legs on last, and I'll show you why that is. Alright, so I got the top half roughly assembled here. Now it's just a matter of going around and adding the legs to it. And it's going to be a lot easier adding the legs and pushing it up than it was for me to try and assemble each piece and then marry them together. And I gotta hurry because it looks like rain's coming. I'm going to have to do this part tomorrow because rain definitely is coming. Alright, so a thunderstorm did come through, and it got really windy, and then it got cold, and it turned into snow. So I'm continuing where I left off the other day, but as you can see over there, I've got my legs already laid out, ready to go into this, and it's been like 2 days since I've continued with this. I'm glad that this happened because I've had some time to think about how I want to do this, and I've also thought of another thing that I need to do to make this easier. But I do want to point out that because that thunderstorm did come through and it was really windy, I kind of lucked out that I had some of these tent stakes. These don't come with this unit. I do a lot of camping and I have a lot of these. You can pick these up for under $1 at Walmart. But I'm lucky that I had these because I was able to tie this down and stake it into the ground and keep it from blowing away when the windstorm did come through. So anyway, I'm rambling a lot. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do next to get this up and get it finished. But you don't need a ladder and you don't need 2 people to do this. And I'm going to show you how to do it right now. Okay, so before I put the legs on, I want to put the front door and the back wall on this thing so that when I push it up, I don't have to climb up there with a ladder and do it then. And it looks like it's going to be pretty straightforward. So it's just a hook and loop type system. So that goes like that for the top. Okay, so that's looped through on the corner post here, on the roof peak, and on the other corner post here. And then you just repeat the process on the other side for the back wall. Alright, so I got my front wall on, and I got my back wall on over here. Now it's just a matter of going through each side, lifting it up, adding the legs, and the hardest part of this build is done. From here on out, you can follow the instructions, and you'll never need a ladder, you'll never need 2 people to do this. It's all pretty straightforward from here. I think it's easier to do this starting with the middle post, but you know, you do you. Alright, so there it is now with all of the legs put in place, and it looks pretty whopper-jawed now, but by the time we get the bottom cross beams put in and the ratchets applied, it's going to square it up and everything's going to be a lot less janky looking. So I'm going to get the ratchets put in now and continue along, but the hardest part of this build now is done, and you didn't need 2 people and a ladder to do it. So at this point we need to wrap the door around and then feed this strap through the ratchet like this. Pull it tight, hook it down here, and then crank it, not too tight because we gotta go to the other side and do the same thing. You got to make sure that these up here are pulled up and over while you do this. But yeah, it's a lot of finagling to get that set up right, but pretty straightforward. We're just going to do the same thing over here. So we pull this flap over to the inside of the leg. And this is where you want to go through and pull the door up and over these poles as you crank this down to make sure that the door is tight on the frame. And it's a lot of moving back and forth, pulling tight here, cranking it down, and making sure that everything lines up properly, but it's pretty straightforward. Okay, that side's done. So now I'm just going to repeat the process over here. Get the back wall tightened down. Alright, so those are strapped down on both sides. And I would say that getting these straps proper is probably one of the most important parts of this entire build, because a lot of your structure comes from how these straps pull the frame in on itself, if that makes any sense. So take some extra time with this part and you should be good to go. Alright, so here I got the roof laid out about how it needs to go up and over, and I probably could have put the roof on before I put the legs on and taken it up, but I don't know how much weight that would have added to the build. This roof is pretty heavy, so I didn't want to chance it. So I've got to get a step stool, put it in the middle there, and go up and over, but this should be pretty straightforward. The trick is you want to lay it out so that these Shelterlogic logos are going to be about right here in this area when you pull it up and over. So we've also got wind coming through right now, so the whole thing is leaning. I'm hoping it doesn't collapse in on itself, but we'll see what happens. Alright, so I got the roof on, and it was not a simple task, but I had a step stool out here and it kept sinking into the soft ground here, so that was about useless. What I ended up doing was running paracord through these straps, throwing it over and pulling it over that way, and that was somewhat easy to do. I just did one on this side and one on the other side over there, and pulled it up and over that way. And I didn't record the process because my camera died just before I started doing that, so I got like 2 seconds of the video where I'm fiddling around on the step stool, and that's when the video stopped recording. So you're just gonna have to take my word for it. That's how I did it. I pulled it over with paracord. Now what we've got to do is strap these straps here down. We got to strap these straps down to the pole down there, and that'll pull the roof tight. Something else I should note is when you pull the roof up and over before you strap it, this needs to be on the outside of the, this needs to wrap around on the outside of the shed before you strap it. And the Shelterlogic logo needs to be probably up a little bit higher, but I'll straighten that all out as we crank it all down. And for our outside wall and roof, we just pull this strap down through, hook it through this ratchet on the front of the L-shaped leg here. But you want to make sure that your door zipper runs through those 2 ratchet straps here, so that you can zip it closed and open it back up. So I've got the outside mainly built. I don't have it pulled tight just yet. What I'm going to do is put the inner bracing poles in place and get those all set up, and then I'll go through and tighten everything down and get it all set up properly before I finish, and then I'll tighten everything down and make sure everything's snug. So now we're almost done. I've got to run this pole through this flap here. And tie it into the center beam with these things right here. One goes on the outside, one goes on the inside, and we flip it over. Run a screw through there. Excuse me, a bolt. Come on, there we go. And, oh, come on. Just gonna go finger tight with this. And then I'll do the same thing, put another pole through here, and then I'll show you how it's done on the end. Okay, so now we can tie these poles into the corners using these pieces right here. They wrap around the end pole down here, and through there. And that goes on there. And, oh, come on, get on there. And again, I'm just going finger tight with these. And tighten everything up as I finish, because I need to square everything up first. That is definitely not square. But yeah, we just repeat the process on all 4 corners, and then we'll be done with everything except for squaring it and securing it. Alright, everything's in. Now I just got to go through and center everything up, and it should just be as easy as making sure that these center poles are lined up at 8 inches off the ground for this center pole here. So I'm going to measure that, and they need to come down a little bit. Let's see. Whoa, that's too much. Alright, that's about 8 on center, so I'm going to mark that one there. and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Alright, so I can see that on this side over here, this line is a lot further down from this pole than this line over here. So it's just a matter of going through and, you know, moving things back and forth until everything gets squared up pretty good. And then I'll tighten all of these bolts down and make sure everything is tight, and then I'll secure it with the ground spikes. But for the most part, this is mostly done at this point. Alright, so I got everything squared up and everything tightened up, and I waited till the last to do this so I could move the thing around and put it where I wanted to put it before I secured it with these 4 corner posts. So you just drive these into the ground and then twist them in, and the ground's fairly soft today, so this shouldn't be too difficult. And now that that's in, we just run this steel cable around and then loop it through, and it includes this little U-bolt here, so we just feed that in, pull it kind of tight, and tighten it down with the U-bolt, and it's secure. That's not going anywhere. Repeat on all 4 corners. As I was building the thing, as I was putting everything together, I really had some spots where I was worried, thinking that it was going to be too flimsy to hold anything. But as you get closer and closer to done, you're going to see that it is strong enough to hold a pretty decent load on itself. And it basically, when you start tightening everything down, it's like a drum. The tension is what gives it structure. So if you're putting it together and you're seeing that basically things aren't as sturdy as you would like it to be, don't worry. By the time you get it done, if you're putting enough tension on everything, and really it's the tension at the bottom, you know, that kind of gives it the structure. So on this center beam here, if I can kick it out a little bit and probably just put a couple tent stakes down in there, it's going to give it even more structure. So I'm not too worried about the structure anymore like I was about halfway through the build. Okay, so the shed-in-the-box build is done. I think there is room for improvement on this, but it's stuff that I would have to go out and buy and add to it. So for example, I ran a piece of PVC pipe down in here across this seam to keep the door from blowing in, and I also did the same thing on the other side with that door over there. A couple other things that I think could be improved upon. These bolts, basically these nuts are not nylock nuts, so I think in time as the wind blows this thing, these are going to loosen up and they could need some future maintenance. If that is the case, I'm just going to buy nylock nuts and put on here to help mitigate that. Also, I am definitely going to buy a cheap set of ratchet straps, and instead of this being the tie down to keep it from blowing away in the wind, I'm going to attach some ratchet straps here and just run down in each corner, and I think that's going to do a lot better job of holding it in place and keeping it from blowing away. I think these are going to be okay, but I'd rather just spend 20 bucks and be better safe than sorry. But as far as it goes, I think it's a pretty decent value for 250 bucks. I got mine on sale for 250. I think they normally run 300. It's pretty decent size. It's 8 feet wide, 10 feet deep, 8 feet high at the peak. So these poles here are probably like 6 feet high. I'm 5'10", and they're just slightly taller than I am, so I'd say that's probably 6 feet, and the peak is at 8 feet. So overall, it is what it is. I'll put any kind of updates. Oh, I did want to mention that some people have mentioned that they are worried about how much snow this roof is going to hold, And I agree. I think that there probably needs to be some kind of like reinforcement run across, and I will probably do that in the future. But I'm going to give it a couple days, couple weeks, whatever, and see how things go. And I'll post any updates in the comments below. So it's cold out here. That's it for me. I'm done for today. Thanks for watching. That's it for now, and I'll see you next time.